Hello and welcome to Black Bear Atheist. As much as I like daily dose of wisdom, let me rephrase that. I don't like him. I like reacting to his content. I don't like that either. Let me rephrase everything. As much as I do a bit of content on daily dose of wisdom, it's not as good as doing a content on by the book of ministries. Though he has less subscribers and less views in general, is a pastor and a YouTube Christian YouTuber and an apologetic at the same time. So that's more of a combo deal, which I like. So here we are on his channel again. The title being Atheist Attempt to Debunk Gospel, but what happened next will shock you. I really don't think it will. This is just another reaction to Frank Turek from him, and I don't think this will shock me. I don't think these people can shock me any more than they already have. I've watched too much of Frank Turek to be surprised by anything.
Talk about the Gospels.
What's your name?
Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
They're not necessarily eyewitness accounts. They're written in the third person. And the reason why we have the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is thanks to the Catholics putting those labels on there. So I guess I don't understand why you say they are eyewitness accounts.
Why do I think they're eyewitness accounts?
Right.
Because they contain eyewitness data. Like, for example, the Gospel of John, there are 59 eyewitness details in that document called the Gospel of John that could only have been known by an eyewitness or somebody who knew an eyewitness.
Okay,
That's not how that works. 59 accounts of eyewitness. There's only one person wrote John. It's not like we have different signatures of people writing their actual things that they've seen and the thing that they believe they saw being Jesus. We have four accounts of different authors that we don't know who actually wrote them, anonymous writers. And then we got Paul who never met Jesus. So again, you don't have eyewitness account. This is just a lie.
is it possible that someone could have just been writing a story?
Well, then you'd have to discount all the other evidence.
It's not just a story. I wouldn't say it's just a story. It's just okay. I would say it's just a story. It's a story that people strongly believe. I'll also say this. Just because people believe it doesn't make it true, but it does say something. That it's not just a story, it's a story people strongly believe. If that makes any sense.
That doesn't appear to be a story, it appears to be a historical account.
From the Bible, right? The Bible is writing about, like, Mark is the first gospel that was written. And
Probably. Some think Matthew may have been written first. Most scholars
Yeah, most scholars says it's Mark.
say Mark was written
okay,
first.
so we'll go with the general consensus, I guess. And then they say maybe Matthew and Luke used a lot of Mark. That's why there's a lot of coinciding events. And if you ever read the Gospels horizontally, where you compare each resurrection account, there seems to be a lot of contradictions, and it's not just an eyewitness.
What would those
problem.
contradictions?
The foundation of the New Testament is the Gospels. All of the other epistles are built on that foundation. So how do you destroy the New
No duh.
Testament? Discredit the Gospels. The contradictions in the Gospels is a common argument that is thrown at the New Testament as a way of
No, all you had to do is just show that there's no evidence for a supernatural event, and the entire Bible is just discarded. Not just the New Testament, the entire Bible is just thrown to the garbage. Like, it's not really important if there's no evidence for a supernatural event. It's just people believing strongly about this thing and writing it down.
discrediting the Gospels, but all of the contradictions are solved. But she brings up the Gospel contradictions concerning the resurrection. Let's hear what those contradictions are.
Well, for example, I think in Mark, the ladies go to the tomb and Jesus isn't there, and an angel tells them to go tell the people, but they don't. It just ends. And then something else is added on about snakes. And then Matthew, he goes ballistic and says there's angels and earthquakes and everything at the resurrection. And they tell her to go tell them to go tell the disciples, and they do this time. Luke reins it in a little bit, and he says the stone was already rolled away, and the angel is sitting on the tomb. Or I don't have this exactly correct, but it's the gist. And then John, being the beloved disciple, made himself, or whoever wrote it, made himself get there first before Peter. And I don't know, there's just a lot of contradictions.
How are those contradictory? I don't see them contradictory. I see.
Okay, so I must point out that if you don't know, then how could you point out there's a contradiction? Yet there are contradictions in the account. Like, for example, which is my favorite example that I just like to bring up because it's simple. One says there's one angel and the other said there's two. And the other said, one accounts that there's an earthquake, and the other somehow left out there's a fucking earthquake. Does that seem like eyewitness to you people? So they were so delusional that day. They were so in their head that day that one think there was an earthquake, and the other thinks there's none. One thinks there was two people, and the other thing there was only just one. Let's keep going.
See them complementary because they're written by different people telling their perspectives on. How are they contradictory?
How did
It's not different perspective when one is saying one thing and the other is saying totally different thing. Totally different thing.
Luke miss the earthquakes and the angels? That seems
Well,
like a big detail.
if he doesn't report an earthquake, that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
It doesn't.
It doesn't mean it did happen, but it does mean that his account is less reliable. Like if everyone saw something like, a chair falling, and someone says, well, it wasn't a chair, it was like God falling on the ground. I'm just making some crazy claim here. There were three people. Two said it was a chair, and one says there was a God on the ground. It was like a bottle falling on the ground. Let's say a bottle. Let's not make some dumb claim. Let's say it's a bottle. Two see chair and one see bottle. You already become skeptical of what exactly happened. And then it said, where did it happen? Or what happened prior to that? And they give the different account. One said someone dropped the bottle. Someone dropped the item, the chair, in a sense for those two. And one of the two that says someone dropped a chair says, well, the person smashed the chair on the ground. But the first person said he just dropped the chair. Again, when you put it all together, when you put it all together, it becomes less reliable as a whole.
Doesn't mean it did.
No, but it's not a contradiction.
Well,
Like, for example,
It is. See what he's trying to do here? Oh, just because they're contradiction doesn't mean it's not true. And then go back to saying, well, it's not a contradiction. Like, Frank, come on. It is a contradiction between saying one saying there's an earthquake and the other saying there's none. Or saying there's two and the other saying there's just only one angel.
if somebody came into this, some reporter came into this room tonight and said, Frank Turek gave a presentation, that would be true. And if somebody else came into this room and said Frank Turek spoke and so did Dr. Ben Gates, that would be true as well.
So far,
Yeah, that would be true as well. But like last time I checked, your dumb presentation is not the salvation of the entire planet. This is supposed to be according to the same text. And you want me to believe based on the salvation of the entire planet, we are all to believe that a supernatural event happened from people that cannot even get their stories right. Okay.
Or she's described no contradictions within the gospel resurrection story. She just described a little.
Am I surprised that it has come down to this? I'm sorry for pausing so much, but am I really surprised that it has come down to this? No, clearly not.
Bit of differences, variations. I want to show you what the Bible says. Let's compare the four gospel resurrection account to see if there truly are contradictions. So let's look at the time of day. The time of day, Matthew says at dawn on the first day of the week. Mark, very early on the first day of the week. Luke, very early on the first day of the week. John, early on the first day of the week. So far, the gospel week. John,
So, Matthew at the dawn of the first day of the week, Mark very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise. Just after sunrise? What? Okay. Luke very early on the first day of the week. John early on the first day of the week, still dark. So we got John saying it's still dark, and Mark saying it was already sunny, but it was still in the morning. Okay.
early on the first day of the week. So far, the Gospels are all saying they went on the first day of the week. Who went?
So so you're just gonna clearly ignore the fact that you put in your fucking table, you put just after sunrise and John saying still dark. But you're gonna focus on the fact that they all say early in the first. Okay.
Went to the tomb. Matthew says Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. Mark records Mary Magdalene, Mary, and Salome. Luke simply records the woman, John, Mary Magdalene. The same people went to the tomb according to the four Gospels. Events that occurred.
Some add on people and some did not even specify who. What the heck does the woman mean? Some are accounting that there's only one person that first saw Jesus and got the news, and some are accounting for three. How does that work? How can you forget the people that were there?
Matthew records violent earthquake, angel speaks to them, women meet Jesus. Mark records women brought spices, angel speaks to them, women fled tomb but said nothing. Luke records women took spices to the tomb, two angels appear, angel speaks to them, told the disciples what they found. John records that Mary Magdalene ran to get Simon Peter. Simon Peter and the other disciples went to the tomb, disciples left, and Jesus appears.
So violent earthquake is not consistent in any of them, except for one. One just said woman met Jesus. What the heck does that mean? I guess we'll never know. One said Mary Magdalene ran to Simon, because obviously she has to be run to Simon to get Peter, and then they're both the same person. Run to Peter and the other disciples who went to the tomb, and the disciples left and Jesus appeared to them. And one said the woman just didn't do nothing, said nothing. Two asked that if she brought spice, the other two doesn't have that. One said two angels appear being specific, and the other just said angel appear. It's like this, or the other also saying woman met Jesus. It's like just all bullshit. If this is supposed to be taken serious, if this is supposed to actually prove a supernatural event, get your story right. This does not make any sense. This is a clear contradiction. There's no way there's a violent earthquake, not just earthquake, a violent earthquake, and everyone else forget to mention that, but they remember to say woman brought spice.
And Jesus appears. So they all went to the tomb. The women went to the tomb. Things happened at the tomb, but they're being told.
All the women went to the tomb and things happened at the tomb. Of course, things happen at the tomb. That's what all of them are claiming. It's a matter of what they're claiming actually happened at the tomb. Jeez.
From a different perspective, but they're essentially saying the same thing. Yes, they're minor variations, but they're all
Yes, there are minor variations, but they're all basically saying the same thing. Jesus rose from the dead. That's the bottom line. Forget the fact that the entire story doesn't add up and none of it make any sense, but since they're all saying Jesus rose from the dead, obviously Jesus rose from the dead. You have to believe what they're claiming to say, even though they have different accounts of what happened. Some made it seem like a crazy event, like God was coming down from heaven, and some just make it seem like a normal thing.
essentially saying the same thing. As it relates to the angels, Matthew says one angel came down from heaven whose appearance was like lightning, clothes were white as snow. Mark says,
So there's no way I'm gonna let him read it before I read it. So one angel came down in heaven, who appears was like lightning, clothes were white as snow, whose appear were like lightning. So how do you miss if there were two angels and there were two lightning strikes and they both looked like lightning? How do you miss that there were two when you were nearly blinded? How do you miss that there were two? And the other one just said young men dressed in white robes sitting on the right side. See what I mean by it went from some are saying it's just like a normal regular thing. The woman brought spice to the thing and just met someone in white robe and tell him Jesus rose from the dead. And the woman did nothing. And one just said a angel came down, there was lightning, there was earthquake, there was a bunch of things, and the angel told the woman Jesus has rose from the dead. The third account, two men appeared in clothes that gleamed like lightning, stood beside them. Also, when he said young man, he didn't say many young men, he said one young man, just a young man. And the last account, two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, once at the other end to the other. One at the two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been. One at the head and the other at foot. These are different accounts, people. These are not the same thing.
young men dressed in white robes. Luke records two men appeared in clothes that gleamed like lightning. John records two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been laid. Some of them says one angel, some says two, but none of them says no angels appeared. They're all saying the same.
Oh, they're all saying the same thing. One said there was no angel, and one said there was no. Since they both never said there was no angel, of course there was angels, and they're both just saying the same thing. Like, shut the fuck up. They're not. These are different accounts.
Same thing.
How are those contradictory? I don't see them contradictory. I see them complementary because they're written by different people telling their perspectives on it. How are they contradictory?
How did Luke miss the earthquakes and the angels? That seems
Well,
like a big detail.
if he doesn't report an earthquake, that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
It doesn't mean it did.
No, but it's not a contradiction.
Well,
Like, for example, if somebody came into this, some reporter came into this room tonight and
I don't know why he's playing the entire shit again. It is a contradiction when say one angel or young man and the other said there were two angels like lightning coming down from the sky and they were apparently telling them shit. And there was earthquake too. And one just act like it's a normal event for every day that just happens. They're not saying the same thing. If I say I see a car driving and there were three people, four, let's make it four now, and we all saw different colors, but we say a car was driving, would you actually believe anything that we're saying? Would you actually take any of our words for? Let's take it further. Let's not even say, let's take it further. We have different accounts of what color the car is. We have different accounts of what the car sounds like. We have different accounts of what the car looks like. And we have different accounts of how fast the car was going. We have different description of what the car was. Some were saying it was like a Lamborghini. It was the best car they've ever seen in their life. It was red. And some are just saying, and one of them are just saying, well, it was just like a normal SUV. And a woman was just driving it. A young man. Those are not the same thing.
Said Frank Turek gave a presentation, that would be true. And if somebody else came into this room and said Frank Turek spoke and so did Dr. Ben Gates, that would be true as well. That would be complementary. That would not be contradictory.
But the fact that there are variations is strong evidence that these are not fabrications, but they are truly eyewitness accounts. This increases the credibility and the veracity of the Gospels. Just because the other authors did
No, it does not.
mention the earthquake doesn't mean it didn't happen. I love that. If 4 people saw a car accident and the detective came and interviewed the 4 people, he has no idea what happened. They can provide their perspective on the car crash.
You know how the analogy that he just dropped off flails? Because you can see that a car accident actually happened. Nobody gives a fuck what the actual account was. Maybe they do for the insurance, but like, you can actually see that a car accident happened. And the detective doesn't even need eyewitness to detect exactly what happened. The cameras, let's say there's no camera, they could find out from the point of impact how the car is damaged, who actually is the cause of the car accident. And they could detect all that without talking to the eyewitness. Because let me point this out. Eyewitness are the lowest point of evidence that you can ever get. They are unreliable. But if all you have is eyewitness, it's a terrible thing. If all you have is an eyewitness, it's unreliable. And if all you have is not even, and what you have, Christians, are not even eyewitness, that's even worse. That is even worse. Yes, eyewitness accounts, actual accounts, help in us determine what really happened in history, trying to find out the truth, but that's not the only thing we use to find out the truth. That's not the only thing we use today or to study history to find out the truth. If that's the case, then we ought to believe that Alexander the Great is a god. Again, none of this is making any sense.
One person may report the color of the car, another person may report how it crashed, where it crashed, another person may report the sound, the speed, people that were injured. Another person may say it was daytime, it was nighttime, the car had silver rims, alloy. They're going to report different things.
It was daytime, it was night. Are you fucking kidding me? If an accident happened and you're a detective and you walk to the scene and then you got 3 people as eyewitness and one was given a totally different color from what the car was, let's say you have the evidence for the car, and one was saying it was nighttime even though we know it was daytime, would you believe anything that comes out of their mouth? Would you believe anything that comes out of their mouth? Now, let's take away the fact that we know that there was a car crash. We don't know whether there was a car crash. These people came with a claim. 3 people coming with us to us with a claim that there was a car crash. And you're a detective and you're trying to find out the truth. And none of them can get their story right. And they all witnessed this car crash. Are you actually going to believe a car crash happened? No fucking way. No one will believe that kind of story, except for gullible people like you. Kidding me?
Things, but they're all going to say the car crashed. They're all going to report that. And the detective can piece together that information to create a picture of what actually happened based on those four slightly different but ultimately congruent eyewitness accounts. And that's what we have in the Gospels. Four perspectives, four accounts, different yet essentially the same in the key, most important elements that Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. They all report that. So we can believe the Gospels, and Frank Turek did a great job reiterating that and explaining.
Yeah, if we say Frank Turek did a great job and you did not just make a mistake and you said it again like he did a great job, then I knew that's exactly my cue to stop the video. This is where we would stop the video. You don't have eyewitness account. There was no debunk here. And there's no need to even prove that there's no need to point out that you don't have an eyewitness account to disprove the entire Bible. All I have to point out is that there's no evidence for a supernatural event. And if we're saying the Bible is evidence of one, and we don't see the effect of anything that will claim in the Bible, like the rain of fire to Sodom and Gomorrah, and we can't find that city anywhere, even though if that actually happened, there would be tons of evidence to find that city. The Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, like Abraham, any of them. But we ought to believe others based on blind faith. Christians would deny it up and down that they're not just believing on blind faith, but that's exactly what you are. These are not eyewitness accounts. These are just accounts of people who believe strongly that Jesus rose from the dead. If that is fucking enough for you to believe, then please, like I said in my other videos, go ahead. But that is not enough for me to believe. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please click that like button and subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by. Have a great day.